All right, let's dive into a really fascinating economic puzzle coming out of Sri Lanka. See, their customs department just dropped some numbers that, at first glance, make absolutely no sense. They managed to miss their targets, but also have a record-breaking year. So how on earth is that possible? Let's get into it.
So yeah, that's the central paradox we're unpacking. How do you miss your goal, but somehow end up having your best year ever? It's a real head-scratcher, right? But when you dig into the data, it tells this incredible story of a nation really starting to pull itself back from the brink.
Okay, to solve this little puzzle, we have to start with what looks like the bad news. We're going to zoom right in on the very last month of the year, December 2025. And on the surface, these numbers, well, they look like a pretty big disappointment.
So check this out. The target for December was 331 billion rupees. What they actually brought in was just under 277 billion. That's a shortfall of more than 16%. Now, if this was the only piece of the puzzle you saw, you'd probably be pretty concerned, but it is definitely not the whole story.
And here's the big twist. That stumble in December, it was a total anomaly. It was the only month the entire year that Customs actually missed its target. For the other 11 months, they didn't just meet their goals, they completely smashed them. All of a sudden, that December figure starts to look a whole lot different, doesn't it?
So now that we have that context, let's zoom out. Let's step back from that one-month snapshot and take a look at the entire year. And this, well, this is where the story completely flips on its head.
For the whole year, the target was about 2.1 trillion rupees. The final number? Over 2.5 trillion. I mean, they didn't just beat their goal, they blew past it by more than 20%. This was an absolutely massive win for the country's finances.
And here it is. This is the number that really puts the scale of this turnaround into perspective. Revenue was up over 64% compared to the previous year. That's not just growth, you guys. That is a monumental leap forward, especially for a country that's been working so hard to recover from a really severe economic crisis.
So the obvious question is, how did they pull this off? A 64% jump in revenue doesn't just happen by accident. What was the secret sauce here? What really fueled this incredible comeback?
Well, to really get it, we need to rewind a bit to 2022. Sri Lanka was deep in a major economic crisis, and they basically had to slam the brakes on almost all imports. But then, as things started to stabilize, those controls began to ease up, and by 2025, it was like the floodgates opened. More goods started flowing into the country, and just as important, people were ready to start buying again.
But a recovering economy, as important as that is, was only part of the equation. Turns out, Sri Lanka's customs department also got a whole lot smarter about how they did things.
It was really a combination of a few key things. The rebound in imports, especially cars, was huge for sure. But customs also got much tougher. They started cracking down on companies trying to underreport the value of their goods to pay less tax. They also put a stop to people mislabeling products to sneak them into a lower tax bracket. It was this really comprehensive strategy to close all the loopholes.
So you can see the shift pretty clearly here. They went from a period of shrinking imports and kind of loose enforcement to this brand new era of growing trade paired with smart, effective monitoring. It created a perfect storm, in the best possible way, for the country's treasury.
And this is exactly why all of this is such a big deal. These trillions of rupees aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. For Sri Lanka, this revenue is nothing short of a lifeline, and it's helping to fuel the entire nation's economic recovery.
Now, to really grasp the impact here, you got to understand what fiscal targets are. See, when a country like Sri Lanka gets help from, say, the IMF, it's not a blank check. They have to agree to meet very specific goals for how much money they bring in versus how much they spend. You can think of it like a financial fitness plan for an entire country. So, this massive customs revenue, it's absolutely vital. It's helping Sri Lanka hit those crucial IMF targets. It's giving the government a much-needed financial cushion. And, just as importantly, it's sending a clear signal to the rest of the world that the Sri Lankan economy and consumer demand are getting back on their feet. And all of that brings us to the big forward-looking question. This customs success is a huge win for Sri Lanka, no doubt about it. But can they keep this momentum going? Is this the engine that can actually power a full, sustainable economic recovery? That's the challenge ahead, and you can be sure the world will be watching.